Tim Neumann. I'm an associate professor at the UCL Institute of Education. I'm based at the UCL Knowledge Lab, which is effectively the home of Dinah Laurelard's conversational framework, because Dinah Laurelard is a professor, or now emeritus professor there, and she is the originator of the six learning types, really. And we've worked with operationalizing them in various ways at our institutions for, well, a long time. We can measure in decades. So, right, my work therefore also involves a little bit of research, and I will say something about that maybe a little bit towards the end of my presentation. But my chapter number 8, was effectively about adapting the ABC Learning Design workshop for postgraduate teaching. So the context is higher education. I am teaching on our A in Education and Technology, specifically a module on learning design in blended and online education. So I have students who are very tuned into this subject and want to learn more about. And it is very obvious, as well, the Knowledge Lab is kind of the home of the conversation framework these days, to use the ABC method in this module. So that's what I've done. But my module has students from all over the world, and some of them are taking this module as distance students. So how can I incorporate a proper ABC learning design experience into that? And that is done by reconfiguring the workshop, by breaking it down into its constituent components and running them separately bit by bit. So that does change the immediacy of the in-room collaboration that we are so used to, which many people claim is the main benefit of getting people in the room and locking them in for 90 or 120 minutes and getting them to collaborate with one another. But breaking it down into an asynchronous digital format serves mainly international cohort better, you could argue. And also, students have time to reflect more on the steps rather than jumping from one to the next. It adds flexibility, but I wanted to keep this creative momentum, so I kept some time-limited constraints, because the benefit there is this rapid idea generation. But what I'm doing in my module as well is to get my students to consider where in the whole process does the ABC workshop actually fit. So if we look at learning design, the various levels, we have the program level, module level, and session and activities. As you probably all know, ABC learning design fits somewhere in between the macro and meso level. We design the outlines for modules primarily. You might not call them modules, you might have different terminology. So I've gone with macro level, meso level, and micro level. Attach your own terminology to that. But ABC sits effectively at the module level, but when we are getting multiple groups designing their own meso level activities, then we are also addressing the program level somewhat. Each level, however, does need slightly different approaches, different data, and has different discussions and leads to different decisions. If we look, and that's what I write about in my chapter as well, if we look at the overall design process, you can generally break it down to these steps that I have on the left-hand side, 8 steps. It's a bit more than the ADDIE process, where we have analysis, design, development, implementation, and evaluation. I still can remember that. I'm surprised myself. But yeah, learning design as a whole, I think you can break it down into more steps, which I've listed here. And there are tons of learning design frameworks out there. And ABC is actually a part of some of them. So if we look at these 8 steps, then ABC would probably fit into mainly the storyboarding and sequencing steps of the process. But it has visionary components as well in the tweet exercise, for example, in doing the first spider graph exercise of your anticipated learning type spread. So that's where I would position ABCLD. And my workflow in the broken down aspect is I do start with a tweet and attach some of the UCL program vision workshops to this activity. And then we have a spider graph. I am using an Excel template at the moment for it. we moved to a storyboard. At the moment, in the past, I have used an online whiteboard for this type of activity. In the future, I will use my custom developed component for that. So the storyboarding, I ask students to not spend more than 45 minutes on that in order to get this time constraint and of having immediate output so that they can then showcase their outputs to other groups and have discussions over a 2 week time in order to make the discussion a little bit richer and give students time to reflect, which is probably more important for students rather than practitioners because, well, they learn about the process and have different types of reflections rather than those that you do in a normal course design process. And then the students are detailing the process because you can only do so much in 45 minutes. For proper design, you need a longer time. And then we return to the spider graph. So that's effectively the full ABC workshop, just spread out across multiple different activities over, I think it's taking 5-6 weeks overall. The pedagogic value is it exposes the students to an authentic learning experiences because, well, we've just heard some examples where ABC is used in practice. So I get my students to use an authentic task and they apply the conversational framework alongside. But the benefit of doing this in a digital way is that we have outputs as digital artifacts that we can then take forward into other platforms and build on it, which is something that's very difficult to do with the paper-based outputs in the face-to-face workshops. And then flexibility-wise, yeah, I've already mentioned that it addresses the international cohort. There are challenges, so managing group work across larger cohorts is a lot of effort. And do all people have access to the tools? I am managing this by having a tool developed myself, which I call the ABC Workshop Companion, which replicates all the paper stuff in a digital format, and it gives you a neat looking export that you can then use in a digital way going forward. And you can then, obviously, if you ask me nicely, I can give you a preview of it. I'm mindful of time, so I just wanted to go back to the process again. The next logical step would be to move towards a detailed activities design. That is what we have the UCL developed learning designer platform for, which I am using with my students as well. But what we found and what we are currently working on as a research team at the Knowledge Lab is that the step from the ABC outputs to the detailed activity designs needs still something in between. And if you're working in an institution and want to explore these spaces in a bit more detail, then please do get in touch with me because we are trying to build a group of people interested in examining this further and building the future tools that address these spaces in between. So at the Knowledge Lab, we have the space to address the first three steps. We have our learning designer platform that addresses the activity design, but we don't have anything else, and we don't have the step that sits directly in the middle of ABC and our learning designer. And that is what we would like to address in the future. So if you're interested to work with us to do the conceptual work, maybe some research work, maybe another Erasmus Plus project in the future, then please do get in touch. My conclusion at the end of my chapter is ABC is effectively the starting point of the learning design process. There's so much more that comes after it. But it is possible to run asynchronously. And with my ABC Workshop Companion tool, I think we can take it properly into the digital domain. And we've also already seen from other colleagues who have done similar efforts with that. So let's keep the collaboration